So, Steve, the question that I want to know about is, whenever all these college kids and stuff go out to their favorite trendy bars to do like a night of drinking and stuff like that, do they order all those stupid, horse shit, ridiculous shots that we used to get back in the day when we were in school?
Such as?
I mean, like, do you think that any of these college kids are going into a bar and being like, "Give me the Four Horsemen, dude"?
What's a Four Horsemen?
Oh, it's just like deliberately awful. It's like fucking, I've actually seen a lot of different versions of it, but the idea is it's like, 151 plus Jaeger plus whatever other high proof things you can toss at it.
Oh.
Or do you think that they're going in there and ordering those like ridiculous layered shots that just drive bartenders and stuff insane?
Fuck.
Are they going in there and ordering sex with an alligator or anything like that,
Yeah, our DM would probably know. I haven't been to a bar in a while, but I don't remember seeing anybody with anything like that. Though, the only places I ever go for a cocktail really are postmodern.
Yeah.
And they don't fuck around.
I mean, maybe we should just like go to some of these really awesome, trendy bars and walk in and be like, "Hey, I'd like a blowjob and a liquid cocaine." Just watch the bartender's reactions when they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Welcome, dead and lovely listeners, to the brand newest installment of your favorite horror movie podcast in this multiverse and the next. Why, it's Dead and Lovely here with your favorite drinking buddies. Why, it's me, Uncle Ben.
Me, Hollywood Steve.
And we're here to do a deep dive chat about old American Psycho from the year 2000.
The future.
But before we do that, we're going to catch up, shoot the shit, talk about some stuff we've been watching, all that jazz. If it's your first time listening and you just want to get right to the movie, you can always look in the podcast description there and find out where the movie chat starts. You can find it. Just look for it. You'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
How you been doing, Steve?
I've been doing all right. Getting good grades. Future so bright.
Ooh, wow.
I gotta wear shades.
Ah, that's great news.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's so good. This is going to be a very music-filled episode.
Yes,
I can
it
already
is. Very
tell.
80s music feel.
Yeah, the best music.
Yeah. We just recorded recently. So not much has happened in the few days since we recorded. So, but it's been good. Been rocking out.
Yeah, man. You watch anything cool?
I watched Hulu has their Into the Dark series, and I actually haven't watched any of those movies yet. But basically, they release a horror movie every month.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
That is themed to a holiday within the month, and this one was National Pet Day. It's called Good Boy. Got Judy Greer in it, and it was funny.
Really? I didn't know that this was like a thing that they were doing. How long has this been going on?
It started last year.
Damn, dude.
It's Blumhouse. They do all the movies. So
okay.
Quality. Yeah.
That sounds like a very Blumhouse kind of move.
Yeah, it does.
Right on.
So yeah, they're making these low budget quality horror movies. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not like amazing, but it was fun.
Is it about a dog?
It's about a dog.
Okay.
And we have been talking recently, because it just keeps happening in the movies we're doing, about horror movies using killing the dog as just a way to introduce, death into the movie.
Mm-hmm. Or make you hate a character.
Good Boy is definitely gonna be fun for you if you don't like that.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I like what they did with it. It was funny, and Judy Greer is always great.
Killer, man. Yeah, I also haven't been watching a whole lot since last time we recorded there. I mean, I watched American Psycho last night, and then the night before that, we watched the Andre the Giant documentary that came out on HBO like last year.
I have not seen this.
Dude, you have to watch it. You have to fucking watch it. It is so good. It'll get them allergies working up, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's either that
Start
or maybe
cutting some onions.
Maybe somebody started cutting some onions up out there. I don't know, because I got some perspiration coming out of my eyes. Not perspiration. That's fucking sweat.
Yeah, you're sweating out of your eyes.
Sweating from the
Jesus.
eyeballs.
Oh, it would just sting too. Oh,
Precipitation was the word I was going for there.
sure, yeah, there you go.
It's really good, and it's got like all kinds of like interviews with Hogan and Mean Gene Okerlund and Ric Flair, like so many people talking about their experiences with Andre, and they cover some of the really good fun mythos that's around Andre about him.
Do they talk about his legendary fart?
Yep, there's a lot of fart talk in there.
Gosh,
that was just apparently
I'll just tell
the
story real quick in case you don't know it. On the set of Princess Bride, apparently one time Andre the Giant let out a fart that lasted for almost a full minute, and afterwards, who directed that? Who directed
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner, yeah.
Meathead.
After the fart, Rob Reiner was like, "You okay?" And Andre the Giant was like, "I am now, boss."
He called everybody boss. That's something I get the impression of through this whole thing. It's like every time somebody does an Andre impression, boss is at the end of every sentence,
Yeah, I remember hearing that story, and I immediately was like, "Yeah, Andre the Giant's awesome." That's an amazing response.
It's great. I mean, like I said, they deal with stuff like that. They talk about his, prodigious drinking skills.
Yeah, he could drink so much alcohol.
Oh my God. I mean, we're talking like a case of wine. Like he would order a case of wine and have that to start the day or whatever.
I mean, the thing is, you could see just look up a picture of Andre the Giant with a beer can. You can see that the beer can is like dwarfed by his hand.
That's one of my favorite pictures. I mean, it looks like he's holding like one of those like tiny bar cans that you get.
Yeah.
That's what a full-size can looks like in his hand. So, when you hear stories about him drinking like 140 beers or whatever.
Like, I believe it.
Yeah, because those are essentially like beer shots.
Yeah, to him.
But, it also gets real and it gets sad and stuff. And it's just like, especially back then. Oh, yeah, all the time. And then, too, especially back then, it's like everything was made for regular sized people everywhere you go. It's like living your entire life sitting on like doll furniture,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, man. You should totally watch it. I know that you'd really appreciate it, but Kate watched it too. She's not into wrestling like at all.
Yeah.
And she was just as captivated as I. So yeah,
I think
give that thing a watch.
Yeah, I think with documentaries, a successful documentary does not have to be about a subject you're already interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Like a well-done documentary, doesn't matter what the subject is, you're by the end of it, you're interested in it.
Yeah, if it's well made, you're in, right? Yeah, and it definitely is very well made, so I think you should watch it.
Hell yeah, I'll check it out.
All right, Steve, the subject of our show today is, of course, American Psycho, and this was a Patreon pick suggested by one of our loyal and lovely patrons. Steve, if people are listening to this and they're like, wait, how do I get to pick a movie? How do you think they should do that?
Well, you're going to want to open a web browser.
A web browser.
On your device.
Okay.
Now, in the web browser, you're going to want to add http
okay, yes.
//www. Now that stands for World Wide Web.
World Wide Web. Got it.
Right. patreon.com/dead and lovely. Those backslashes I said earlier, you're going to want to fix those to front slashes unless you're trying to get into your C drive. What's going on here?
Now, Steve, do I do this before or after I dial up the modem?
Oh, right. Yeah, you're going to have to do that. Oh, okay. Man.
I'm going to dial up first. Welcome. Then enter that into my web browser.
You've got mail.
Then I type in the HTTP.
Yeah. But head on over there, become a $5 patron, and you can help decide which movies we cover. Not only do we randomly pick one for once a month, but we also go to the suggestions very often when we're looking for movies to cover. So go become a $5 patron. Decide what movies we review. That's
review.
Yeah, what movies we review is our it's our tagline, right? Oh shit! Fuck! What is happening? Suddenly, after 167 episodes, I got stage fright.
Are people listening right now?
Oh no.
I can't talk. But yeah, head on over to the Patreon page, show some support for the show, and you can help drive the car.
Yeah.
And this is such a fucking awesome movie. It had been so long since I saw it that I was actually kind of nervous to watch it again and see if the glimmer had faded. Yeah, exactly. But if anything, it's way more relevant now.
Yeah. It's even better now.
And, of course, one of the things that I think everybody takes from this movie after they watch it for the first time is the absolutely 80s pop-tastic soundtrack that is propelled by Patrick Bateman's musical taste. It is chock-a-block with, fucking Phil Collins, Whitney Houston, Simply Irresistible, and Robert Palmer on there.
Uh-huh.
Holy moly. I mean, to the extent that I believe it was the biggest expense for the film, right? Was just the soundtrack rights.
Yeah. Yeah, a $7 million budget, and the biggest expense was the rights to those songs.
I believe it, too, because they are solid gold 80s hits. So, Steve, I say before we get into the movie review ski proper, how about we just take a little pit stop here at the old Preview Palace?
Preview Palace.
This is Preview Palace. And Steve, I'd like to just take a second here and ask you about your favorite hits from the 80s. Maybe if you could wrangle up about 10 of them, what would you put on a list like that?
About a billion of them.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, this was like the hardest list I've ever had to make. I was seriously like fucking wringing my hands and stressing. I got the Vapors.
The Vapors, yeah, that makes sense. Pull out the smelling salts. You'll be all right.
I had to be revived.
Of course. Probably had to loosen your corset a bit.
I did. It is thankfully made of a very flexible whale so it relaxed as soon as I loosened the strings.
Very flexible whale bone.
Dude, because seriously, like, there's so much fucking great music to choose from. It was so hard to narrow it down to just 10 because I'm telling you, dude, it's like they spent a solid decade writing 80s music. That's going to lead to them getting pretty good at it.
Yeah. After a solid decade. And this is actually something I noticed because we talked about this with Scream, that 1997 was the most 90s year. I think 1987 is around the time we start leaving behind the 80s sound. So this is like the highest it got right before becoming the 90s and getting, way more hip hop. That was awesome. And also grunge and whatnot. But man, I listen to a lot of this music regularly.
Totally, me too. And the funny thing about 80s music is when I was a kid, I didn't like it. Like when I was a kid, when I was a kid, my mom would play, the new hits radio station and shit like that, and play, stuff like Phil Collins and all that. I actually really didn't get into it. I didn't like it at all.
Oh man,
I know it makes no sense. Like I love classic rock, like 70s stuff when I was a kid, and classical, but I didn't get into any of the stuff back then. But now it's like kind of all that I want to listen to.
No, all right. I like the song I would say from the 80s I listen to most regularly, and I don't know why, is Walk Like an Egyptian.
Oh, is that some Bangles action?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with how adorable Susanna Hoffs is, and I always watch the video on YouTube.
Yep.
But it's just a fucking awesome song.
Oh, it's great. That's totally one silly. I remember hearing all the time as a kid, and like seeing the music video and stuff.
The video is insane. It's ridiculous. The video is insane.
Yes,
but
it is.
I don't know. It's just so very 80s that I think just watching it is enough nostalgia.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. That's a great choice right there. So with myself, I tried to keep this out of the realm of like hair metal. I tried to keep it in the realm of like 80s pop hits and stuff.
Yeah, stuff you would have heard on a regular old radio station.
Exactly. But every now and then we did have kind of a crossover that sort of treaded the line in between those two, such as Jump by Van Halen.
Jump!
Yeah, dude. Might as well jump.
Yeah.
I mean, good God, you got giant synthesizers. You got Eddie's ripping ass guitar solo.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep, the last record with David Lee Roth on vocals from the original line of records.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And
What else do you
that
want?
was on a lot of movies.
Oh God, it was. Yeah, you also got David Lee Roth riding a giant inflatable microphone like a stallion in the video, doing spin kicks. I think he has a sword in the video too. Come
Obviously.
on, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of jumping,
Number 9.
This is in no way related to that.
Okay.
Tears for
segue.
Fears. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Holy shit, that's on my list too, dude.
Seriously? Yeah.
Oh,
okay. I mean,
so good.
Tears for Fears. Awesome. Just great.
Absolutely.
Shout. Okay. How about this? You can have Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Shout. That was a great one.
I call it a deal. All of that stuff, man. Tears for Fears, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran.
Oh, yeah.
It's impossible to choose. It's impossible to choose.
It really
like,
is.
How to get all that stuff in a top 10 because it's all so fucking good. Everybody
really
Wants
is.
to Rule the World is one of my favorites, though. There's actually a lot of really complex and ambiguous things going on with the rhythm of that song, which is really cool, and there's some great covers of it as well. My friend Mark Lettieri, that plays for Snarky Puppy, on his Spark and Echo album, his solo album, Spark and Echo.
Oh.
Are you there? Are you there?
Hey. Okay.
Hey.
You're back.
We're back.
Okay. I heard you say your friend Mark Lettieri
Yeah.
from Spark Puppy. Yeah.
I'll just kind of restart that sentence.
Okay.
There's also a lot of really dope covers of that tune too. Like my friend Mark Lettieri that plays guitar for Snarky Puppy, on his solo album Spark and Echo, the last track on it is a cover of this song, and it is so fucking dope. He's got like
That's awesome.
a guy playing steel guitar. It might be him playing steel, I don't know. Playing like the melodies and stuff. God, it's so good, man.
That's
I
dope.
love that song.
I have some questions because as someone who knows nothing about music really at all, I know that a lot of people hate this music and that a lot of people doubt the levels of musicianship in a lot of the 80s pop.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? I mean, is it the fact that synthesizers are easier than guitars? Was it just some sort of was it like maybe that they were using elements of disco that people hated about it?
So that's a good question right there. Yeah, because basically a lot of this music, as a result of the time period that it was recorded in, it's obviously very dated sounding. I mean, when you hear something that came out in the 80s, you're like, oh, it sounds like it came out in the 80s. Everything sounds a lot more synthesized and polished and maybe artificial or
very
plasticky
polished,
than the classic rock era. And you are correct in a lot of ways in that a lot of that stuff did start coming about during the disco era. Actually, in fact, the way that pretty much all modern music for the past, well, I say modern, I really mean since the 80s really, or even late 70s, pretty much all music is recorded to a metronome these days, to a perfect click. We call it aligning stuff to the grid to where everything will be metrically perfect. And back in the days of classic rock, they just had a drummer record and then everybody would record on top of him. Everybody played to the drummer. Maybe he is, slowing down in the choruses. Maybe he's pushing forward in the verses, whatever. But whenever we reached the disco era and we started adapting a lot more synthesizers and stuff like that into our music, there's a feature on a lot of those early synthesizers called like arpeggiation. Okay. And basically it's just like you can just hold down one key and the keyboard will do those crazy like arpeggios, And because it is a synthesizer doing it, it's metrically perfect. So basically, if you had John Bonham from Led Zeppelin playing drums and he's pushing and pulling the tempo up and down, you can't be using one of those synthesizers because the synthesizer is metronomically perfect.
Okay.
So during the disco era, when they started using those synths and stuff a lot in a lot of that music, it kind of demanded that the drummer record to a click track because otherwise he would drift away from it by, the chorus or whatever. So to some people, that means that there's a lot of humanity that got lost whenever we started recording to a click. So I think that is part of it. But, I mean, obviously, even outside of, like, the guitar, which the guitar was, like, the primary shred force of the 80s and in all of rock and heavy metal and stuff.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that, like, 80s guitar players are hot shit. But there's so many artists on these songs that played on these 80s hits that are incredible drummers and bass players and backup singers. And you got to think, dude, there was no fucking auto-tune or anything back then.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, Phil Collins knows what he's doing when he's playing some drums, and he is able to use a unique voice to provide something more than just a boring white dude singing songs about white people problems. Like, I mean, but that is mostly what 80s pop is, boring white people singing white people problem songs, but it still sounds great. Like, I actually really do like the artificial sound to it.
Totally,
like,
man.
I like that off-putting perfection to it for some reason. It really works for me.
Well, that all kind of goes back to that thing that we talked about in art and in music and in film and everything else, where whenever there's a new advent of technology, the things that we were perceiving as its flaws back then become its primary characteristics given enough time. I mean, the fact that, like, you know, pixel art is a thing. The fact that so many 2D games now are coming out and they're intentionally pixely and blocky.
Right.
That used to be a limitation of the technology, a flaw. But
but now it's a choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's a trademark now. Give it 20 or 30 years, and now it's a trademark, you know?
Right.
I'd say that people will be saying the same thing about, you know, hearing auto-tune and pitch correct on stuff now. Like, nowadays, I listen to it, and I'm like, fuck this. It sounds like shit. It doesn't sound like anybody singing in tune. It sounds like a keyboard singing.
It does.
But then 20 or 30 years from now, people will be doing that to get this era sound on purpose. Again, the limitation will become the appeal.
Yeah. That's cool.
And even kind of some of those, you know, ultra musicians that I'm talking about appear on my next entry on my list because it's motherfucking Rosanna by Toto.
Awesome. I was going to put Africa on my list, but I didn't.
That's the thing, right? Is like, I mean, obviously Africa, iconic as fuck, but it's also just been driven into the fucking ground over the past few years, man. The final nail in the coffin was that god-awful Weezer cover. Fuck, that was horrible. But Rosanna by Toto is absolutely incredible. Jeff Porcaro's drum groove in that, amazing. The guitar solo in there by Steve Lukather, phenomenal. The keyboard solo, amazing. Toto, a lot of people don't know, was a band that was formed by a bunch of studio rats that played on everybody's records in the 70s and up into the early 80s. They worked on all these sessions together, playing for huge pop stars, and you know they were Boz Scaggs' band. Toto was Boz Scaggs' band, and so they eventually just hit a point where they're like, let's write our own fucking songs, which makes sense if you've ever seen Toto. They're just a bunch of like fugly studio looking guys, you know. They don't look like pop stars.
Rock star looking dudes.
No. So those guys are all incredible players that managed to transition into the 80s from this, you know, studio lifestyle that they started in the late 70s. Amazing players.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude.
The Toto's Africa I always associate with my next one on my list, Men at Work, Down Under.
I come from a land down under.
I love that song so much.
Name another song that mentions a Vegemite sandwich.
Yeah, that's my favorite bit. He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. It's like, I don't know, it's simplicity. And how it is really just trying to cash in on people's interest in Australia at the time. Yeah, but it's still good. It's still fun.
It's got a hot jazz flute part in it too.
It does. Well, jazz flute. That is something I noticed too in going through a lot of these and all the stuff in American Psycho. Is a lot of like different instruments that you don't pick out as much anymore in songs. Like, they still do get used, but like the saxophone had a big heyday in the 80s.
Oh my God, Careless Whisper and all that stuff. Come on, little saxohorn in there.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why Shirtless Sax Guy was in The Lost Boys, because the sax was sexy.
Sexy sax. Hey, I'll tell you what, the next one on my list has got a sexy sax solo in it.
What it is?
I Can't Go For That by some good old Hall and motherfucking Oates.
Hall and Oates.
God damn it, dude. Like, if you're not aware of how many incredible 80s pop hits, Hall & Oates wrote, "You might be a redneck."
Yeah. You might be.
You might be a redneck.
Damn old redneck.
Oh, P.S. Just side Jeff Foxworthy note.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, I did see the saddest thing that has happened as a result of the COVID-19 quarantine, lockdown, change of lifestyle that we're under, right now.
What is it?
I drove by a Shoney's, and they were advertising that you can get buffet to go. The idea of taking Shoney's home to eat is actually the saddest thing I've ever thought of.
Horrendously sad. Yeah.
Can you think of anything that would be more depressing than that? Go to Shoney's, grab a to-go box, and load it up. Then you take it home.
Oh, gosh. Here you go, kids. Here's some cantaloupe that tastes like nothing, and here's some just box pancakes that I could have made, but instead I wanted to pay for them. No idea why.
Sorry, I don't love you more.
Sorry, I don't. I'm not really. I'm just saying that because I think it'll help.
There's really any number of Hall & Oates songs that I could have chosen, but there's something about I Can't Go For That. It's got that just steady mid-tempo groove, a groovin'-ass bass line, dope chord changes. Holy cow. Hall & Oates songs have crazy complicated chord changes in a lot of them that people don't that people don't realize. Even songs like Maneater have all kinds of crazy key changes and stuff. And it's because, like, Daryl Hall and John Oates were huge Motown fans. Like, that's their shit is Motown. And, of course, a lot of those songs are very complex harmonically and totally appealing from a pop sense, too. So, yeah, I had to put some Hall & Oates on here, man. They're the sound of the fucking 80s pop.
I didn't even pick a song here. I'm just going to say The Cars.
There you go. Fuck yeah, man.
Like The Cars throughout the 80s. That's the stuff I remember being on the radio a lot. Yep. I remember The Cars and Jefferson Starship were on the radio a lot.
Ooh. Yeah. I like The Cars a lot better.
Yeah, that's terrible. But
so
The
bad.
Cars. I mean, My Best Friend's Girl is amazing.
So what good.
We lost Rick Ocasek a couple of years ago, right? But
see you at the crossroads.
Man, he was so that was just such wonderfully put together music.
Oh yeah,
and
dude.
I don't know if there's ever been a band that nailed perfectly like the feel of the Cars. Except maybe Weezer on their first couple albums.
Of course, because Rick Ocasek produced the Blue Album.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like that's why. And it's funny too because I was into Weezer way before I got into the Cars, and then whenever I started listening to the Cars and I heard those like really just straight super nerdy songs like Shake It Up, like that's what I love about Shake It Up. It sounds like a bunch of fucking nerds writing something that they think is cool. And it's got that cheesy ass like synthesizer and stuff. Oh, yeah. And then you hear the Blue Album and you're like, yeah, that sounds exactly like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was that nerdy bit to it that really always stuck with me.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
How, the Cars stood out as particularly weird for being on the radio back in the 80s.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No kidding. And some great guitar playing by Elliot Easton. He had a lot of like cool rockabilly inspired stuff. Even in like My Best Friend's Girl, it's got a great solo in that. That's a great choice right there, man. Yeah, my next one here is a little off the beaten path, but it's just one of my favorite songs, and I listen to it probably every week at least once. Do you know the song In My House by the Mary Jane Girls?
No.
It's not really like a huge tune, but I'm obsessed with it, and I listen to it constantly. Down. Yeah, it's like they're like a girl group. I guess they had like 3 chicks, singing in the band, and it's just got this like mid-tempo groove. Like you know how a lot of songs like they have those high points and low points, and they carry you through it, and it's like a ride or whatever. Yeah. But then every now and then there's a song that just kind of stays at the whole level the entire song, but somehow it's just completely entrancing.
Yeah.
This is one of those songs. Great vocals, great chord progressions, and production. I'm obsessed with it. Give that one a listen.
Lionel Richie's All Night Long.
Oh, shit. Lionel. I don't have any Lionel on my list, dude.
Oh, wow. We'll also mention Hello, as well as just everything Lionel Richie did in the 80s was awesome. But All Night Long is one that I sing probably once a week. Like,
Dude.
it just comes to my head and I'm just singing it the whole day.
Can you imagine what kind of cold-blooded killer would listen to All Night Long and not have a good time?
Yes, I can. It would be Patrick Bateman.
Yeah,
But
exactly. You have to be
I
a
think he could
cold-blooded
probably
killer.
muster up a good time for that.
I'm pretty
song.
sure that he could. Oh, dude, that's such a great one.
Yeah.
Cool chord progressions in that song too. Great rhythm section. That's a good choice, man. Okay, I got one on here that, I mean, it's impossible to narrow it down to the best song by this artist, but it's undeniable that he was such a gigantic force in the 80s. I'm talking about that motherfucker Prince.
Yes, yeah. I didn't put a Prince song down because I was going to defer to you as to what you think the best Prince song is.
Because
from the 80s.
you knew I'd have one on here, right?
Yeah, I was writing some down and then I was like, man, I've already got like 30 songs.
Well, you know, I've got a lot of
a
favorite
Prince song.
Yeah, I've got a lot of favorite Prince tunes, but the one that I listen to like on repeat all the time is a little tune off of Purple Rain called Baby I'm a Star. You know that tune?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know the whole Purple Rain album, yeah.
Oh, dude. And really, I mean, I could have put Darling Nikki, I could have put Computer Blue, obviously Purple
Sure.
Rain. So
Obviously,
many fucking awesome songs, but Baby I'm a Star, there's something about it that it just makes me have a great time. It makes me super happy to
Yeah.
listen to that song. So I listen to that one on repeat all the time. Also, it was basically recorded live. Same with the song Purple Rain. A lot of people don't know this.
Huh.
The cut of Purple Rain that you hear on the album,
Yeah.
that's the first song the first time that song was ever played live. That's live.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I think Prince might have been talented.
You know, I'm going to look into it.
All right.
Gonna look into
check
it.
it out. Maybe check a couple of his other albums. He may have been extremely talented. I think he wrote a couple of people's songs as well.
That's right. I might even have one of them creeping up on this list. You're going to find out about that soon.
Hell yeah.
What do you got?
Well, you mentioned Duran Duran earlier. Hungry Like the Wolf.
Ah, irresistible. So fucking
Hungry
good,
like
man.
the wolf. Yeah, I mean, Duran Duran in general, a bunch of great songs.
Oh,
but Hungry
Rio,
Like the Wolf,
dude. Ah, I love Rio.
Yeah. That's a great one.
So
Yeah,
many good
but-
tunes. Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, those are all very solid choices so far. We're kind of getting up to the top of the list here, and I'm going to try to put some on you here that are heavy hitters. Of course, the 80s, when you think about the pop scene and stuff, you're thinking about all these happy people and all these fun songs and people that are like, yeah, we got all this money in our pockets and we're all on cocaine and got tight bodies.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just fun, wacky, good times for everybody. Some people in the 80s were sad and dark and
Oh, yeah?
emotional. And they were writing songs like Love Song by The Cure.
Oh, Bob Smith.
Oh, Bob Smith, isn't he?
Oh, Bob Smith's down in the doldrums.
He's a bit down in the doldrums, isn't he?
Yeah, The Cure's awesome.
Fuck yeah. There's any number of incredible Cure songs I could have put.
Yeah,
Fascination Street, Pictures of You, Six Different
Sure.
Ways. I mean, good God. But Love Song is just so timeless.
Love
There's
Song.
also been a lot of great covers of it. The 311 cover is actually pretty sick.
I have not heard that.
Dude,
I gotta
it's
check
cool.
that out.
It's
Okay.
good, man. So yeah, I
All
got to
right.
put some Cure on my list.
This one is just one of my favorite bands of all time. And the video is gonna blow your mind if you've never
Uh-oh.
seen it before. We're talking about Dire Straits' Money for Nothing.
Oh, and your chicks for free, huh?
That's right. Yep. If you're paying for your money and your chicks, you are a loser, according to the Dire Straits.
Dude, that song is awesome. Absolutely
amazing.
awesome. Martin Knopfler is one of the best guitar players of all time. And I'll tell you this, too. I've never heard anybody, myself included, play that opening riff and make it sound right. There's some kind of magic going on there that I don't comprehend. So good.
that
Yeah,
weird out.
that's a great choice right there, man. You know, we're getting up into our top three right here.
Yeah, we
This is
are.
where the stakes are getting high. And I'll tell you, I had a few noteworthy ones that I wanted to put on my list that just barely didn't make it. I just want to mention them real quick before I get into my top
Okay.
three. One Thing Leads to Another by The Fix. I fucking love that
Great
song,
one.
man.
Uh-huh.
And then my love of it was driven home even more when it appeared in The House of the Devil.
Yeah.
So good, man.
Awesome.
Reach by Martini Ranch.
Okay.
Which is one a lot
Bill
of people probably
Paxton's
don't know.
band?
Yes, that's right. It's Bill Paxton and members of the
Yeah.
B-52s.
Yeah.
Dude, they had one album. Like,
Yeah.
probably nobody's listened to it. I got turned on to it by our friends over on Sale of Satan because they talk about it all the time. And I checked out the whole album, and actually, I'm in love with the entire record. The whole thing
you
is
played
so
some
fucking
for
good.
me, I remember. And yeah, it's very listenable for sure. So my honorable mentions: 1, In Excess, Need You Tonight.
Oh, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Definitely. Fucking awesome. Another would be, I wanted a Madonna song.
I was literally about to say I had a Madonna song on my list, and somehow I accidentally crossed it out, and I don't know what I replaced it with. Because,
Yeah.
Material Girl is one of my favorite songs of
Material
all time.
Girl is exactly what I was going to name. It's such an awesome song.
Yes.
Like Virgin, also great.
Fuck yeah.
Papa Don't Preach. Like, she was kicking ass in the 80s.
Oh, so much good. So Lucky Star. I mean, golly,
Yeah.
Burning Up. I love the early Madonna stuff so much.
And though one of their very popular 80s hits is absolutely terrible, Jefferson Starship's Jane is an awesome fucking song.
Oh, man, that's kind of a deep cut. I like that.
Yeah, it's awesome though. It's a great, I mean, it's like it doesn't fit at all with the "We built this city" stupid shit, but it's great. I love that song.
Wow, dude. That's awesome, man. Yeah, those are some good honorable mentions right there. All right, let's get up into this top 3, Steve.
Let's do it, man.
All right, so right here, I'm going to dump one on you that's from a guy that made a very graceful transition from 70s rock stardom into the glitz and glamour of the 80s. In fact, a man who was timeless, a man who shifted his musicality and persona with every passing decade to always stay relevant, controversial, and interesting. But in the 80s, we had a Dave Bowie, what dropped a Let's Dance on our heads, and holy
Let's
moly,
Dance.
it's a jammer.
It is. That's a great song.
Uh-huh.
I mean, of all the Bowie songs you could have picked, that one is probably my favorite kind of cheesy song that he has. Like
Love it.
It's like it's got a whiff of cheese to it. It's still great and still like good David Bowie type of music making, but it's like got a whiff of cheese, and I think it's intentional, obviously.
And part of the reason it's so goddamn good is, for one, you got old steamy Ray Vaughan dropping a hot guitar solo on you, and motherfucking Nile Rodgers from Chic playing rhythm guitar. Actually, he produced the whole album and played rhythm guitar on it.
Huh.
No wonder it's fucking awesome.
Damn.
Oh, yeah, dude. What you got on your number 3?
Well, I mean, we can't skip him, no matter how we feel about it. Michael Jackson is the king of pop, and he ruled
come
the
on.
80s.
Yeah, you can't deny it. And even if you don't like Michael Jackson, which from what we know you probably shouldn't, we can still all agree I love those Quincy Jones songs.
Yep, that's true.
So think of it that way.
Think of it that
Come
way.
on. It's like you said. It's like you couldn't go anywhere in the 80s and not hear Michael Jackson. What's your pick
No.
for an MJ tune?
Thriller, I think, is
Come on,
it's the definitive 80s Michael Jackson tune.
Also the
because-
most horror appropriate.
That's true. But sold like crazy. The video was extremely popular, and it's still awesome. The song's
yeah.
great. Going back and watching the video, you still get to see just I don't know like why Michael Jackson thought I want to do a horror movie song / video, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Changed the music video industry entirely too.
Yeah.
Great choice. I also have an MJ pick on here as well. I figured that you would probably toss a Thriller on, so I
Yeah.
went with a little less obvious but so fucking banging tune. Name a PYT, Pretty Young Thing.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
That's a jam of jams right there,
Yes,
dude.
it is. All right. Well, Ben, if we're hitting number 1, I'm going to drop a Journey, Don't Stop Believing on you.
Holy moly. What a whopper of a number 1 that is right there. That is very hard to argue with right there.
I just
That is
hit
an
your pogs
anthem.
with my slammer.
I've been slammed.
You got slammed. Yeah, Journey, Don't Stop Believing. Can you do any better than a Journey song in the 80s? I mean, you got the falsetto, you got the synthesizers, you got the amazing musicianship just going on in general. Every song is a banger, man.
Yeah,
Journey.
You're right. Awesome videos back in the day too. Some very silly shit going on.
Very
some of those.
silly. Made no sense. I was obsessed with them as a kid. Still obsessed with them today. Cannot wrap my head around the that video where they're on the pier.
Separate Ways.
Separate Ways, yes. Can't get my head around that Separate Ways video. We're 40 years away from it, and I'm still thinking about it every day. Like, what was going on there?
Why was his keyboard glued to the wall?
Why? What was that about?
I mean, it's really hard to top a Don't Stop Believin'. That is an anthem for humans. But I'll tell you this, man. Whenever we had this idea to do this little top 10 list of 80s hits, number one was already filled out. I just had to work backwards all the way to figure out the other ones. Because
what is
my
almost as good as this song, you had to think.
Exactly. And honestly, not much, because the one that I'm dropping on you here for my number one pick, it's not just the best song of the 80s. It's probably the best song of all time.
Oh.
Because let me ask you this. Can you think of any song that could be better than one that was originally written by Prince?
Okay.
That features Stevie Wonder playing harmonica.
All right.
Apparently, Reb Beach from Winger is on guitar on this song, which I don't even hear guitar on it, so I don't know about that. And, of course, on the mic, we got motherfucking Chaka Khan. Because I'm talking about I Feel For You by Chaka Khan, which is my favorite song of all time.
Okay.
And I listen to it several times a week and have for years because it is the best song.
Yeah, that's a great song. Absolutely. Wow. I did not expect that to drop as number one, but it is pretty typificational of the 80s. It typifies the 80s itself. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's the best. I never get tired of that song, ever.
Wow.
And if I ever do, I just listen to the Prince version.
Yeah.
Because it's also
just switch
awesome.
it up.
Uh-huh. So there we go. We got our top 10 list. I hope Patrick Bateman would approve of our choices. I'm not sure if he would, though.
I don't think he would.
Hits.
I don't think he would approve of several of those.
Yeah. Let us know your top 10 80s hits over there on the Facebook group. I'd love to catch what some of your alls are. Just go there and join the Facebook group, the Dead and Lovely Horror Podcast group on the Facebook. And you can join in that chat with all the cool kids.
Yep, facebook.com/Dead and Lovely. Head on over there.
Damn right. All right, Steve, now that we've plowed through these 80s hits, let's talk about a little flick that came out in the year 2000.
Whoa. Was it written by a robot?
I'm talking about American Pistachio. And I'm assuming that this was not the first time you saw American Pistachio, is it?
It is not the first time I saw American Pistachio. I saw it way back in the day, but it was the best time I've watched American Psycho because I liked it even more.
I know, right? I was really wondering if this was going to hold up because, it came out in 2000, and our good friend Brandon Suttles showed it to us probably around, I'm going to say probably around 2004 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like mind-blowing the first time that we watched it. And it just kind of became one of those where it's like whenever you get together with friends and you're going to watch a movie, you got to ask them. It's like, have you seen American Psycho? Oh, you haven't? We're watching that. That's what we're watching.
Yeah.
It was one of those movies that like I kind of became evangelical about, where I was like, I want other people to watch this movie because I loved it so much. And then sometime in there, like, we liked the movie so much that Kate decided to read the book by Bret Easton Ellis.
Uh-huh.
And she hated it so fucking much. And she would just, like, tell me stuff about it and be like, God, in this chapter I read today, it was just, 20 pages about this name brand shirt. Like, it sounds like the book is extremely tedious and monotonous to read because it takes his, like, brand name obsessions and stuff like that to absolutely insane levels apparently in the book. So she got so burnt out on it, and I was also just kind of like, God, this sounds terrible, that we didn't watch the movie for years. This is probably the first time I've watched this movie in, I bet, 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
still fucking loved it.
the novel had a very negative effect.
Apparently. And apparently, like, I get that from a lot of other people. I've talked to other people that have read it, and they're just like, yeah, it's way overboard on the descriptive stuff in it, and is apparently not a very fun read. So, yeah.
Huh. Do you think, is anybody turned off by Bret Easton Ellis's ridiculous presence on Twitter? Is that
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, well, he's ridiculous.
Yeah?
Yeah, pretty ridiculous.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's a defender of Trump, for sure.
What?
Yeah.
What? How could the person that wrote this book defend Trump?
This book that is about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
How did he defend Trump? I think he does. He says and does a lot of shit to be provocative.
Yeah.
Because that's what got him to where he is. And yeah, I don't know. It's mind blowing to me. But anyway.
And let me just go ahead and put out a little trigger snowflake warning.
Right, yeah.
We get a lot of backlash from people who are just like, oh, they fucking talk bad about Trump. I hate these guys, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This is probably not going to be the episode for you.
Yeah, this is not the one for you, pal.
Yeah, because the thing that I realized about this is that, when the book came out in
It was 87.
Late 87.
Oh,
when
wait,
the book came out.
it came out in 91. Sorry.
Okay. So whenever the book came out, it was extremely relevant in that, the end of the Reagan era.
Yep.
And then when the movie came out, it was like kind of not relevant and novel. And watching it again now, I'm like, oh, it's extremely relevant again because everything just happens in cycles.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, when Trump was saying "Make America Great Again," this was the America he was talking about. So it's almost like the cycle created itself.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, this is what he was wanting. And so, anyway, yeah, if you're a big Trump fan, this episode's not going to be for you. But I don't know how you would enjoy American Psycho unless you watch American Psycho and go like, yeah, he's like real cool and he kills people and stuff.
He's a hero.
Right. Yeah. So if you see him as the hero, you'll probably not like us talking about his connections to Trump, the obvious connections that Mary Herron and Guinevere Turner were trying to make between him and Trump and him and Ted Bundy, which are definitely coming from Bret Easton Ellis, who was making a novel that wasn't going to include the violence. It was really just going to be exploring the psychology of this character until he had a dinner with some stockbroker friends and listened to them basically the whole time praising Donald Trump. And so he decided that he would be a serial killer. He'd be a psychopath.
Wow. That's crazy. There's apparently a lot of stuff in the book that goes on and on about his adoration of Donald Trump.
With Trump,
Yeah, like he wants to be Donald Trump.
Yeah. The movie
that should worry you a little bit, maybe.
It should.
I don't know.
That the president of the United States is this. The one thing that's majorly different for sure is that Patrick Bateman is able to remain calm and use like his charisma and allure to put people at ease. Trump doesn't do any of that. He's just like, I got a whole bunch of money, so you gotta do what I want you to do. Like he doesn't have any sort of subtlety to his character. So in that way, that's where the Ted Bundy comes in. And of course, in the movie, he mentions Ted Bundy a couple times. Like he's definitely supposed to be a reflection of these two individuals. But I don't know how. I don't know how you. I don't know how you know that the entire decade of the 80s existed and that throughout the 80s, everyone was clowning on Trump.
Yeah. He was like the punchline at the end of every rich guy joke.
Yep. And then people are like, just 40 years later, basically, are like, yeah, no, it's cool. He should be president. It's cool.
And
It's all
also
good.
too, just another little warning about this is one of those movies that you do not want spoiled for you, and we are going to spoil the fuck out of it. So if you've not watched this movie, watch it. It's fucking awesome, and then finish the episode, because this is one of those ones that, like, I remember the first time that it got to the end of the movie, my mind was just erased. Absolutely mind-blowing movie.
Yeah.
So don't let us ruin it for you. If you haven't watched it, yes, we recommend that you do. Now, Steve, this movie had kind of a rocky lead up to its production. Of course, Bret Easton Ellis wrote the book, which was phenomenally controversial. Holy moly. It's like up there with like the satanic verses and all that kind of shit. He had like death threats issued on him. He was afraid to go on a publicity tour because people were like threatening violence against him. Yeah. Very controversial book.
Yeah, it was very controversial, and that actually made it hard to get the movie made. When they were shopping it around, nobody wanted to distribute it, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
So it took a while. That the rights to the film were actually bought in 1992. So in 92, they were working toward making the movie, and at the time, Johnny Depp was interested in starring.
That could have worked.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely could have. Yeah. I think at the time, too, Johnny Depp hadn't really become a much bigger star. He still was kind of like, remember him from 21 Jump Street and stuff. So, yeah, it could have worked. Then the project eventually did get to the point where they were maybe going to have distribution, and they got David Cronin. Well, they went to Stuart Gordon, director of Reanimator, first. But he wasn't interested in the project, so they went to David Cronenberg.
Oh, shit.
And it was going to be Cronenberg directing, and they were looking at Brad Pitt.
Whoa.
Potentially.
I would love to visit that alternate universe and see that.
Maybe. I don't know if it could work quite as well, because the whole time you would have been watching it going, that's Brad Pitt. Because Brad Pitt was Brad Pitt already in 2000. But at the time that they were considering it, he was a bit more obscure. So if they had done it in the early 90s, yeah, I could see that working really well, because he does have that, like, you know, physique and just the features and all the stuff that you need to present this overly outwardly attractive but inwardly dark character. I think he could have played it probably. Then eventually we get to a point where David Cronenberg drops out, and then Mary Herron is super interested, and she and Guinevere Turner wrote a script. The script that they wrote is basically the movie we see, but they didn't get to make it at that point, because once they sold the distribution rights finally to Lionsgate wanted a bigger name, and Mary Herron has already started putting her cast together. Like, she was insistent on Christian Bale. She really wanted Jared Leto and somebody else. Willem Dafoe. Like, she was insistent she had to have them, and Lionsgate wanted a bigger name if they were gonna, distribute it. So they approached Leonardo DiCaprio, who was interested in doing the project and was gonna get paid $21 million. So the budget went from I think at the time it was about to be $8 million to $40 million.
Well, that's because, you had the star fucking Titanic in it by that point. By the year 2000, he was ginormous.
He was gigantic, and he gave them a short list of directors he would work with, which included, of course, Martin Scorsese, Oliver Stone, and somebody else.
Okay.
Some other huge name. Anyway, so it was going to cost them so much money, and they get Oliver Stone, and then they're working with a script that basically is a real close adaptation of the book and has none of the satire that Mary Herron and Genevieve Turner's script had.
That's what I was wondering about.
More of a... Yeah, because the book doesn't have that satire.
Yeah. Kate said that it is all extremely dry and very, very dark and very flat in a lot of ways because it's all Bateman's internal narrative. So of course it's not going to have anything witty in it. So yeah, I love though that they did interject that into the script and find ways to make this just something other than completely nihilistic and bleak.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of that movie with Oliver Stone and the superstar Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's like, okay, I'm never gonna get into the psyche of Patrick Bateman because I'm watching Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It really needs a unknown name, and so eventually, Leonardo DiCaprio dropped out to go film The Beach, for which he received a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor.
Hey, I'll put this out there, man. The book by Alice Garland is fucking awesome. The book of The Beach
I'm sure.
is great.
And Danny Boyle, you would expect it to be good, but anyway.
It's not very good.
No. So he left, and so Oliver Stone left, and then basically Mary Herron was there like, hey, can I still make the movie I wanted to make? And they were like, fine, but you have to keep it under $10 million. And so she ended up spending only $7 million.
That's nuts.
Because she's a badass.
Yeah. In the year 2000, spending $7 million on a movie was...
to make this level of movie as well.
Yeah. That's a tiny, tiny budget, man.
Yeah. She was insistent on Christian Bale the whole time. And as we know about Christian Bale... because of this movie, we know this. He's a very dedicated actor. He spent months and months. He didn't take any auditions for 9 months while all this shit was going on in the background and not knowing if he had a role or not. But the whole time he was working out, the entire time developing the character for 9 months. And then finally, when they decide to go with Mary Herron, They got him into the gym with physical trainer and got him even bigger. And
that's insane. Yeah, he's shredded in this.
Yeah, he's huge. Which is crazy because The Machinist is just a couple of years after this.
And then he's Batman like a year after that.
Batman a year after that. Like that level of dedication. Like it's the type of dedication from like say Lon Chaney. Go check out Legacy of Brutality episode 2, whatever. Lon Chaney. Like these actors that are willing to just put themselves through hell to really embody a role. And
actors are crazy people. They're crazy people, dude.
That's true. We're very lucky that Mary Herron was insistent on this and pushed this because it gave us Christian Bale and it gave us this performance, like, and all of his future performances because he was able to do what he really knew was right, able to really embody the role, and the director just trusted him to make it what it is.
It's crazy too that she had instantly that much faith in him, I guess, because she watched him in Newsies. Like what was he in up to this? Little Women? Wasn't he Little Women or something?
Yeah, he was in a few smaller roles. Yeah, he had been in Portrait of a Lady, Jane Campion's film, a couple of years before this. Maybe that was it. But yeah, I don't know why she had so much faith in him other than just seeing his level of dedication and knowing he's absolutely gonna nail it. Apparently he stayed in the American accent the whole time, and this is before he was famous. So at the rap party, he was speaking with a British accent, and a lot of the members of the crew thought he was just putting on an accent.
No shit.
Yeah,
because he never dropped it the whole time.
Never dropped the American accent. Yeah. So
it's crazy too, because like just watching this, knowing that you'd never guess that he wasn't American. Like his pronunciation and diction and stuff is perfect.
Yeah. I would like to ask my wife. She can almost always tell when someone is a British or Australian and speaking with an American accent. I'd have to ask my wife if she could tell. But I think he nails it. I think he's doing such a great job with it.
Wow, man.
You know, and we look at this cast and it's like, how is this $7 million? But you just have to remember,
I know.
Most of these people weren't famous yet. They weren't huge yet, at least.
I had totally forgotten how many people were in this flick. I mean, obviously I remembered Christian Bale. This is like pre-Batman and stuff. But Like, I forgot that Willem Dafoe is in this as the detective.
Willem Dafoe's in this, being awesome. With that Willem Dafoe face.
That face that he has.
He's got one.
Reese Witherspoon? Holy
Reese
shit,
Witherspoon
forgot she was in
this?
here,
Yeah.
dude.
This is
as his,
just
like,
a little
pilled-out
after
girlfriend.
Cruel Intentions, so she's popular at this time, but she still hasn't, done Legally Blonde or Sweet Home Alabama. She's not like America's Sweetheart.
Right. And Chloe Sevigny is the secretary in this.
Hell yeah.
Completely forgot she was in this, dude.
Yeah. I mean, she was in everything in the 90s and early 2000s, I think. She did so much stuff.
Yeah, totally. Jared Leto in here.
Jared Leto, yeah. This is just after Fight Club and, My So-Called Life. So he's like, becoming popular, but he's still not the Jared Leto we know now.
And then there's also that one guy that I always think is Matthew McConaughey, but he never is. He's like one of his friends. I think he's even in Sweet Home Alabama or something.
Yeah, Josh Lucas. Yeah,
that guy.
He's in Sweet Home Alabama. He's also in Session 9, which we did last year.
Fuck. That's what I knew him from. Yes.
Yeah, he's good. I like him. He really sells asshole well.
Yeah, he does. Very, very well.
Oh, we also have Justin Theroux in here.
Who's that?
He's married to Jennifer. He's the guy who, when they're in the cocaine stall, the one guy's like, I'm trying to do drugs over here. Yeah.
Dude, which, by the way, in a post-COVID world, scenes like that are just that much grosser.
Crazy. Yeah.
Dude, he's snorting cocaine in a public bathroom with a million other people in there, and then he also rubs his finger on his teeth and gums.
Yeah. Was that a bathroom, or were those just cocaine stalls?
Yeah, really.
I mean,
what's the diff,
toilets.
really? I assume in 1987 it was just like tomato,
Yeah. Justin Theroux. Who else we got in here?
Crazy
Matt Ross, who plays Lewis. He's been in a few things. He's in Silicon Valley, and he was in the first season of American Horror Story. But he's got a great look.
Yeah, totally.
He just has that very distinctive look, and I mean, he's supposed to specifically stand out against this sea of men who are interchangeable to the point where they call each other by the wrong names all the time.
Yeah,
it's like they don't even know each other at all because they all look the same and dress the same and like the same things and do the same things. Lewis is the one standout, and we find out he's gay.
Yeah. He's the only one that doesn't really dress like everybody, and his hairstyle
he actually has
is different.
some style. He has some flair to him. Yeah, he's even wearing a bow tie. What? Could you imagine?
That's one of those things that really stood out to me this time while watching the movie, is how all the guys and all the girls in it really that are connected to these dudes are just clones of each other.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are all just carbon copies. And even during everyone knows the business card scene where they're comparing their business cards and
they're
stuff.
just the same fucking card.
Yeah. It's there's nothing about them that's different at all, but these guys will find ways to stay competitive and greedy and jealous. Even if they all have the same thing, there's still always going to be this drive that mine has to be better than that guy's, even if he has the exact same thing as you.
He's ready to kill Lewis because Lewis did something different. He had gold lettering instead of black.
And dude, even the way that they're constantly fucking each other's names up and stuff in this really stood out to me this time too.
Yeah, they call each other the wrong name. It is about their interchangeability and about how in a lot of ways Patrick Bateman is all of them. He you could even, there's a reading of this for sure where Patrick Bateman isn't a character at all, but a representation of their singular aspect that they all have in common, which is they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. They're all the same person. So it's at that point, what does it even matter who it is, who is killing the other person? It doesn't matter because they're all just clones. They all have this hive mind, and they all just have been assimilated by this culture of greed and wealth and materialistic stuff that was so at its peak in 1987. I mean, we're talking about the Reagan era. We're talking about Wall Street had just come out.
Yeah, it had, and it was showing and somewhat celebrating that culture. Yeah, this is the height of that time.
And as a result of that lifestyle that all these guys are pursuing, they lose all individualistic nature. It's all about just blending in and having more and being the same.
Patrick says he says to his fiance, I want to fit in. Like that's the most important thing to him. Like he also, the opening really lays out the reasoning behind what I was saying, that he's not even a character perhaps in the film, that he's just this imaginary figure that represents all of them. He says in the beginning, there is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense that our lives are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
Wow, that does kind of make it sort of obvious when you say it that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, that he's just a representation of all their greed. Each of these crimes could be any one of those individuals. Like, they probably all are in some ways guilty of each of the crimes that are shown. So yeah, Patrick Bateman that's one way of looking at it. I want to look at it some other ways. That is one way of looking at it, and an interesting way to read it, I think. But I think there's more to be pulled out of it than just he's not even real.
Yeah, because you can get into all that stuff, especially when you start thinking about the ending of the movie and whether he killed all those people,
whether
he
killed anybody at all. Yeah. I think, the book is pretty much indicating that he didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
The movie makes it much more vague as to whether or not he does or not. I think it's possible, and maybe even most probable, that he does kill some of the people.
Okay.
Some of them are his fantasies, and some of them are actual kills. I do believe that the bodies that we see in Paul's apartment whenever he's chasing Christine, I do believe that those bodies were there, and he goes back to that apartment to clean up, and they have been removed. I think that's supposed to have happened because of the way that the realtor lady reacts to him. Like, she obviously knows, like, oh, he was the one responsible for those corpses. But the message of the movie is that this system covers up for itself. So because the Manhattan real estate market is so competitive, a agent came in, saw dead prostitute bodies, and cleaned up for him.
Because otherwise you couldn't make a buck.
Yeah. What benefit is it for him to go to jail?
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a hassle for her. All she has to do is just clean up and sell this to somebody.
Yeah.
So I think that those deaths, at least, and those are the killings of people who are, I guess, in his world, ants. They're nothing. Like he kills a homeless man. He kills sex workers. Like, he kills these people who don't matter to anyone in his mind.
Yeah.
And I think that the movie's trying to, like, give us at the very least the glimmer, and I know it doesn't sound like much of a glimmer of hope, but the glimmer of hope that not only is he this terrible narcissist monster, but he is actually killing these people because that's how terrible and horrendous he is. Like, we want him to be that monster. We don't want it at the end to just be like, oh, these were just his fantasies. Like, like, that is like still a condemnation of this type of behavior, but it kind of like reins it back too much for me. I want him to be a psycho so that I can hate him.
Well, and that's the thing about the movie too, is like, even if he didn't do all the stuff that you were shown and that he fantasized about. He wants to, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, it's just kind of showing you that that is the type of sociopathic, uncaring personality that this business and this lifestyle breeds.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason why so many captains of industry and CEOs and stuff like that are literal sociopaths. It's because you have to be to cut the throat of the man that's on the next rung of the ladder ahead of you and make decisions that literally put people's lives at stake. I mean, I know you're talking about, stock trades and real estate, yada, yada, yada. That stuff results in people dying. I mean, whenever Pharma Bro jacked up the price of EpiPens and stuff like that,
people died.
People fucking died.
Yep.
And I think that that's also part of what this movie is saying, too, is like, whether or not he did it with his own hands, the decisions that these type of people make do end up killing people, and they don't care, and they also receive no punishment for it.
And by the way, that Pharma Bro stuff is a good example of what I'm saying about this system that cleans up for itself.
Oh, yeah.
People will get the idea that Pharma Bro went to jail because he jacked up the prices of EpiPens, but that is not what happened. In fact, nothing changed in regards to that. He went to jail because he screwed other rich people.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, he did not go to jail for people dying because of his decision. He went to jail because he lost rich people's money. So keep in mind, the system cleans up for itself. It does not care about you. That's what this movie's saying, and it seems to be the truth.
Oh, yeah, and that's really exemplified in parts where you've got, Patrick Bateman dragging a body bag out of his place in a suit jacket bag.
Yep.
And I think it's Lewis or one of those guys sees it happening. He's like, is that a Louis Vuitton bag?
Yep.
Like, he doesn't even think twice about the corpse that's in it.
Nope,
all he sees
care.
is the bag, the name brand, designer thing.
Like, getting Patrick Bateman arrested for that is only going to create an enemy because he's going to have enough money to get lawyers to get him off entirely.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Now you have a competitor that you tried to take out with something like that. So, yeah. Like, it just seems like it's a constant calculation with each of them. Like, he will say out loud, I'm a murderer. And they're just like, huh? Cool, so what are you doing next week? Like,
yeah.
Like, it's like, I don't care. I am amoral. Like, your confession is to an absolute amoral character who does not give a shit if you're murdering sex workers or killing homeless men and their dog.
Right. Yeah, because like I said, all these cats do have literal blood on their hands at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned. If you're making decisions like that out of greed or want for power that are literally, making little kids die when they don't have an EpiPen and they just got stung by a bee, you're a murderer.
I mean, all of the atrocities that we look at are all financial in nature. Like, the kids in cages, it's because we have prison contracts that have to be fulfilled. We have to fill certain seats. So many people are in jail because those contracts are there, and the state either has to pay for an empty bed or for a prisoner.
Hey, I can't remember. Do those lives matter? According to All Lives Matter, do the lives of kids in cages?
Right. Are those part of the all lives? I think what people are skipping is the silent white in there. All white lives matter is what they're saying.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Got it.
But they're also forgetting the comma unless you're a woman.
Oh, right. That
right. Or poor. Or the wrong religion. Guys, I'm telling you, the further and further you get into your shitty white supremacy shit, the more I fucking hate you. God damn it. If you're listening right now, you fucking racist, eat shit. God damn. What is wrong with you? Why can't we just have nice things?
We're trying to live in a society.
We are. Jesus. Racists don't deserve entertainment. That everybody who makes entertainment and tries to stay like out of politics because you think, oh, everybody deserves entertainment, or, oh, I want to appeal to the world. No, fucking let people know your politics from the beginning, and you won't have to deal with shedding them as you go.
Also, I don't really worry about offending racists, so.
Yeah, fuck them. Well, who gives a shit if a racist is offended? Oh, no.
Oh, your feelings, your racist little feelings. I don't give a shit.
Anyway.
But, I think in this movie, too, like, the thing that people always point out is that, oh, man, he couldn't have killed Paul Allen because that dude says he just had lunch with Paul Allen in London or whatever.
Yeah, but they mix each other up all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the movie, the fact that you're kind of left with this, like, did he kill them or did he not?
Right.
I think the real question is would it matter one way or the other if he did or didn't?
Yeah, does it change anything if it's true or not true? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's worse if he carried these things out or if he fantasized about them very actively and wanted to do it?
Yeah. And
I
in
think
fact,
that we're just kind of left with
convinced
that on
himself
purpose.
he did do it.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because that's how real he wanted that to be.
Yeah.
And that's something, too, that I think is really fascinating in the movie is that, we see him consuming media. We see him consuming videotapes, which, of course, he has to go return some videotapes.
Right. He's a big 80s pop fan, porn fan, and horror fan.
Yeah, all that we see him watch is sex or violence. He's watching porn or he's watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
And even the way that some of those scenes in the movie play out, it's clear that, if those are his fantasies were just directly injected into his head by media. He has no ideas of his own. He has no fantasies of his own. His fantasy of sex.
He's blank.
Yeah, his fantasy of sex is just exactly what he saw in that porn. His fantasy of violence is exactly what he saw in TCM. I mean, that whole scene at the end of the movie where he's chasing her around with the chainsaw.
Yeah, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, yeah.
And she's screaming bloody murder. Like, it got to that point where, like, she'd been screaming her head off for a while, and I was like, God, this reminds me of Texas Chainsaw. Oh, yeah, he was watching that earlier. So even his fantasies aren't his own. Everything about him is just things that have been injected into him by pop culture and that wealthy society.
Yeah. I think definitely they injected some of that because of the association with Ted Bundy, because Ted Bundy basically laid the blame for his desire to kill on porn, which is bullshit, and he was full of shit, constantly lying just to make himself seem better, because that's what he did. That was his entire being. He was a liar. Nothing about him was ever honest. So he could easily lay the blame on porn. But the idea that, he's just this blank slate where everything he consumes is basically his mode of thought. I think that's interesting considering what we do know about Donald Trump as president. Because we do know he spends an inordinate number of hours sitting in front of the TV consuming media, and then he's constantly on his phone consuming media, and that everything he consumes he takes in as either, if it's praising him, it's true. If it's not praising him, it is a fucking fake news by these goddamn traitors that are trying to destroy capitalism. So it's something I find interesting that if Ellis knew, because I know he consumes, I mean, that's why in the book he's talking so much about products. Like, he's so easily swayed by advertisement and, like, the idea of, like, this thing is the best thing, the top thing. You have to have the absolute best. Like, I wonder if Ellis knew this about Trump, or if it really was like he was just writing, this is what a sociopath would be, and then it turns out that is what Trump is.
It's just, I'm just writing about a generic Wall Street greedy sociopath, and I was right.
got it. I wonder if he, because, like, I would assume he, from his conversations with the Wall Street guys that really influenced him to make Patrick Bateman a killer, I would assume a lot of that was actually stuff they were telling him about Trump.
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing that
it
some
had
of
to
this
come
really,
from somewhere.
Yeah, some of this really did sneak in from actual knowledge about Trump. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah. I think that you're right. And, another thing, too, on the subject of kind of the end of the movie where, he's gone through this whole process where he maybe did or didn't kill all these people. He makes that phone call confessing to his lawyer. Right. And then he sees no consequence whatsoever. There is no punishment. There is no catharsis.
Shoot someone on Main Street or whatever.
Yeah.
Fifth Avenue, that's what he said.
I think that, what kind of ends up happening here is that, he spent the whole movie treating everybody's life like it's worthless and just meaningless to him. I mean, he kills these people without even thinking twice about it. Towards the end of the movie, he just goes on a killing spree and just shoots people just for no reason at all. And I think what he kind of realizes there towards the end is that, maybe without that catharsis, without that punishment for his actions, his life is just as worthless to the people that he surrounds himself with as all these, so-called worthless people are to him.
Yeah.
I think that he realizes, in the eyes of all these other Wall Street dudes that he's always trying to constantly live up to and impress and do better than, all of their lives are worthless in each other's eyes.
Right. His final line is, "My confession has meant nothing," or "This confession has meant nothing." Yeah, it's interesting. The ways in which either, it may be playing with our expectations of reality, but I think it's more showing his vision of reality, which is that he does all these terrible things and he's never held accountable for them. So in his mind, he thinks, did it even happen?
Right, yeah.
There's a definite way of seeing this where he is doing absolutely all of this and every bit of it's just being covered up and dismissed because he's extremely rich.
Mm-hmm.
And so in his mind, there is no sort of reality because the expectation would be there would be some reprisal, something would happen.
Right, but there's no punishment for the elite.
There's never any punishment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is at the end of the day, you or me could walk out our door with a fucking joint behind our ear and go to jail for it.
Yep, absolutely.
And then, meanwhile, if you're some kind of gigantic, mega wealthy, real estate mogul or something like that, and you decide to evict an entire building, or I'm going to demolish this housing project to make room for yada, 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 and you lead to the deaths of dozens or hundreds of people, there's no consequence.
There are people out there, there are white people out there right now selling marijuana legally and making billions of dollars a year on it. And there are black people sitting in jail for doing the same thing.
Literally the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. If that system isn't, at the very least, biased somewhat towards white people, I'll eat a hat. Just any hat. Just bring me a hat. I'll eat it. That's so glaring. And this movie is really putting that out on Front Street. Just so glaring how they can just get away with anything.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Because they're all identityless. I mean, I even wonder if Patrick Bateman was ever even that guy's original name. I mean, the way that he just picks up and goes I'm Paul Allen. Or at one point, somebody mistakes him for, what's the name? It's not Habersberger. It's Hapsburger or something like that.
Yeah. I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Somebody assumes that that's him, and he just goes with it. He's like, I am that person now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so easily able to just fall into a role that, we don't even know the reliability of whether or not he is who he says he is. He could have Costanza'd himself into that job.
Yeah, exactly.
I work here now, Yeah, my dad's the CEO or something. They're never going to talk to the CEO to ask, so...
No. And, even the doorman's how are you doing tonight, Mr. Smith?
Right.
Who the fuck is he?
Who the fuck is he is a good question.
Yeah. In a lifestyle where everybody is so identical, it is scary that they could all be swimming in and out of all these different identities, all these different names, because what's the name matter? They're all the same person.
I've thought about this so much in the more recent days, where what was it that was ever preventing people from lying about who they were before the internet?
Oh, I know, right? Like, it's so easy to disprove now, but back in the day, it's just like new town, new me.
Yeah, just I'll get on 40 and drive a few hundred miles, and I'll walk into a town and say my name is something else. And what are they gonna do? Like, how would they ever figure it out? They would have to have a reason to even investigate it. It's just ridiculous.
Is he who he says he is?
It's crazy how much of human history was just down to relying on people to just be honest.
Yeah.
And how much of the internet that is, by the way. So much of like people like boomers and even some Generation X people who didn't grow up with computers and now are constantly online. They didn't go through the phase a lot of us did in the 90s where it was like, oh, people can just say whatever the fuck they want on the internet. It's not all true.
It's not real.
Like, yeah, so like a lot of, people in their 40s and 50s now are finally getting on Facebook, and then everything they see, they're like, oh, that must be true.
That's definitely real.
You can't just say things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no kidding, man. And that's the funny thing, too, is like I remember whenever we got our first computer, and, our parents would be like, don't go into those chat rooms. People aren't who they say they are. Mm-hmm. And now, like, they're totally reposting stuff from, like, bots that they don't know in real life, and they just assume that they're real. It's like, you guys need to remember,
guys,
not everybody's who they say they are.
John 746375473 says that Trump just cured cancer. So
must be true.
Must be true.
That's what I want to hear. Now, here's the thing. This movie is absolutely dominated by dudes that are all just, white, straight males all over the whole movie. And the way that women and people of color are represented in this movie is, in some people's eyes, pretty controversial. They think that it seems very racist and very misogynist. What is your take on that?
I mean, it is, but that's because it's supposed to be.
Right? Like, he's the bad guy. He's not a good guy.
He's a racist and he's a misogynist, and he kills doggies. Like, guys, if you're watching this movie and at the end you're like, oh, that was pretty misogynist, I think you missed the point.
I think you missed the part that it's not glorifying any of that.
This guy's not cool. It's saying this is what these guys are. They are racist. They are misogynist. The most ridiculous shit usually too. It's the stuff they're saying in this, like a woman can't be smart and attractive, and like a woman shouldn't talk. Like, they were basically just saying the most disgusting shit you can say.
Yeah.
Man, those are really bummer conversations for me.
Yeah.
I do not want to be a part of.
No. And that's the thing, is like, I really think that people sort of miss the point if they watch this and they're like, he's so violent against women. It's a misogynistic, anti-feminist movie. It's like, he's not a good person, and they're not glamorizing any of this stuff. They're not trying to like get you on his side.
Yeah.
He's not a sympathetic character whatsoever. I think if they would have made him a sympathetic character where it was like, oh, he came from a broken home, blah, 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 that's why he is the way he is, then that could have been like, okay, so you're saying it's okay for him to get away with what he was doing to women in this. That's not the case, though. He's supposed to be completely unrelatable and cold.
Yeah. I think it's also like really just ignoring the fact that this is written by two women and directed by a woman. Like, they are probably trying to say something about the misogyny, not glorifying it. We're not watching fucking Entourage.
And I think it's also no mistake in here that the only non-white people are subservient to these guys. They're the people working in the laundromat. They're like doormen. They're homeless people.
The homeless men, yeah.
Waiters.
That homeless scene is very hard to. Obviously, all of the scenes are hard to watch, really. But
that scene is rough. He's just like, why don't you get a fucking job? Like, he just cannot empathize or relate.
The idea of finding people who are as far down as you can be and then kicking them more. That's the most disgusting element of all of this to me, is that it's not even just about race or sex.
It's about class.
It's about class. I mean, not that obviously the other white men in this are all of the upper crust. Like, do we see any other white men who are in subservient roles? I mean, even the private detective is dressed nice. Yeah, it just seems like that's what it's trying to get at, is like, this is the world these men live in, and this is how they treat everyone who is not them.
Yeah, totally.
And,
yeah, I think so. So I don't see it as being misogynistic or racist in any kind of glorifying way. Are the characters? Yes, but you're also not supposed to like them.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope you don't like them. It would be very bad.
Although I do gotta say, I do like his musical taste. Although I think there's definitely an ulterior motive here. Dude, whenever he starts talking about, Huey Lewis and the News or Phil Collins, or there's like numerous speeches about, hit songs and stuff in here. It always sounds, kind of like what I was saying about his fantasies. They're not even his opinions. It sounds like he's reciting reviews that he read in Rolling Stone or something.
Exactly. That is exactly what it sounds like. He's reciting reviews he read in Rolling Stone. And that is it. Like, his life is finding what everyone else says is the best and having it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing, is like, there's even a part in there, I think it's when he's talking about Huey Lewis and the News, where he's like, it's like the opposite of being a hipster, where you're like, I liked it before it was cool. He's like, I didn't like it until it was cool to like it. Like, he talks about how their early records were too new wave and too weird and experimental, but once they became a pop band and got #1 hits, then I started to like them. He can only like it if it is the #1 hottest, most popular thing.
Yeah. He has to know that he is with the majority always, so he can never be wrong.
Yeah.
That is part of it. That's like such a deep part of the narcissist mentality, is never being wrong, never accepting the idea that you could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because also having like an opinion of your own or a taste of your own means that you might be wrong.
Yeah, people might not like it. Yeah, that's why I think that's why the scene with Lewis is so interesting, when he follows him to the bathroom to strangle him.
Oh, yeah.
And then Lewis, like, kisses his hand. Like, the fact is, he holds his hands up while Lewis is doing that. He doesn't, like, shriek away. We've seen him get touched other times and immediately be like, don't touch me.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, he lingered.
That's a scene that I was kind of wondering about. What do you read into that, as far as that homosexual encounter he has?
Yeah, I think he finds Lewis fascinating. Mm-hmm. Because Lewis is going against all of his rules, but he's in the same circle with him, making the same level of money. He wants Lewis's wife, or future wife. Like, he wants to be Lewis more than anything. But he is afraid. He's scared. He can't put himself out there because he could be wrong.
And that's the thing that I wonder about, is like, what is that reaction about? Because you're right, he's gonna strangle him. He turns around, Lewis like kisses his hand, and he's so disgusted that like he washes his gloves. Like, he's wearing the gloves and washes them. Maybe he's also just so disgusted with the whole situation because Lewis didn't run in terror. He didn't empower him. You know?
Yeah. Lewis is not afraid of him.
No, not at all.
Some of it is because he is attracted to him, and I think some of it is maybe that Lewis likes the edge to him. Like, Lewis likes that bit of danger to him. So I think it's the same thing that attracts some of the women to him. Like, that women are attracted to him for sure because he's an attractive man. But like, there is like, that does seem to be in the scenes with Chloe Sevigny and the scenes with Lewis's fiance. There seems to be a good bit of them just wanting his approval more than anything. Like, if he will give them a little bit of approval, they'll give him everything.
Yeah. I think you're right there. So we see him interacting with all these clones of himself, and everybody just turns a blind eye to how fucked up everybody is. And P.S., like, Patrick Bateman is not this unique fucked up character in this movie.
No, they're
all that fucked up. But one thing I found kind of interesting is watching how quote unquote normal people, people that
Uh-huh.
aren't on his level of social standing react to how bizarre and plastic and fake he is. Like, especially when we get to see him interact with his secretary, Chloe Sevigny, and the blonde sex worker that he gets a couple times in the movie.
Christine is what he calls her. But that is not her name. That he gives her a name. Christine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. But like, there's multiple times in there where these women are looking at him just like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, what
It's like
is
they're seeing
going on?
right through him. It's like your everyday common people looks at sociopath maniacs like this and sees right through them.
Yeah. There's no hiding that like fakeness. But when everyone else you're around is also fake, like, they're not going to call you out for being fake. They're being fake too.
Right. Yeah. And you were mentioning to me how you found that Bateman kind of like does little subtle mind games with a lot of people, probably just to show power, to flex.
To flex his superiority. Yes. One of the things that stood out to me so hard that I had never thought about was when he asks his secretary, Chloe Sevigny, out on a date.
Yeah.
When it cut to that scene, I hadn't watched it in a while. When it cut to that scene and I saw what he was wearing, I was like, that's not what Patrick Bateman would wear. Like, it immediately was like, that costume is wrong. And then watching it again, a few scenes before that, he pretends to be on the phone when the private investigator Willem Dafoe shows up. He pretends to be on the phone, and okay, so while he's on the phone, he's pretending to be talking to somebody who's, I guess, buying clothes, and he says, a bold striped shirt calls for a solid colored or discreetly patterned suit and tie. In the scene when he asks Chloe Sevigny out, he is wearing a striped shirt with a striped jacket, going against the rule that he established earlier. He is also wearing...
That. That's deliberate.
It is very deliberate. He's also wearing a bright red tie with blue suspenders. He's clowning her. He's saying, like, I can dress like an absolute moron and she will still think I look good. Like, he is just really clowning on her. And it's crazy because then for the date, all he does is change his tie to an even clownier tie. Like, she shows up in like that nice dress and everything, and he just changed his tie. That's it. He doesn't care about her at all.
And that's kind of the funny thing too about that. I hadn't thought about that, but like, that's just the kind of joke that only his crowd would get. You know what I mean? It's like your everyday person doesn't look at that and go, oh, okay, I get it. He's wearing the wrong tie with those suspenders or whatever. But to his crowd, that would be like, oh, I really see what you did there. Because they all just obsess over all the tiniest shit to conform and be like each other and look wealthy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And you can tell that he had no intention of taking her out at all. Like, he was not going to go out in that. He was planning on killing her, as we know, and then he decides not to. And I think there was something there where the pleasure just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like, he either wants them to be completely unsuspecting, or like with Christy, he really got joy, it seemed, out of doing things directly in front of her, like drugging the wine right in front of her.
Totally, right?
Just
I thought
to,
that was like, that's not discreet at all.
Yeah, it's just a power move. Just like, I'm going to drug this and you're going to drink it.
Wow.
Like, with everyone else, there's like so much of a game going on, or like they're very much prey. And I think with Chloe Sevigny, for some reason, her lack of ability to see what he's doing just kind of makes the game no fun. And he just decides, like, well, I don't want to. Like, it just seems so arbitrary. But it's like, the joy wasn't there. He was dancing around happily when he killed Paul Allen. Like, he's living it up when he kills the sex workers or his rich friend, who was played by Genevieve Turner, the writer. when he's, doing all that, he's having so much fun, but it's just like in that moment, it's like the fun's not there. And he doesn't want to just go through the motions.
Wow. Yeah.
Just, like, that's so interesting to think about, that a serial killer would be like, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah. And some of those scenes too are simultaneously so funny and so gruesome, and also so telling about that character. Like the scene you're just talking about where, he puts on the raincoat and he puts on Huey Lewis and he moonwalks across the place. And you like Huey Lewis in the news? Like, all of it is so ridiculous and memorable. Awesome. And like I said, it's warped, but it's also really funny and memorable at the same time. But then also too, like the fact that the only reason he put on the raincoat is because he cared about getting blood on his suit.
Yep.
He gets blood sprayed all over his face. He could not care less about it.
Just doesn't want it on his suit.
Yeah. Because it's like, he takes off the raincoat and suddenly he's just businessman again, only he has blood all over his face.
Yep.
The humor in this is great, dude. Like, this is one of those movies that really, it is a very dark comedy. If you watch this looking for a horror movie and you've got him talking about the greatest gift of all and all that stuff, like,
oh, man.
You'll be like, this is a weird movie and the acting is strange and plasticky and odd. Right. But when you watch it as a dark comedy, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. That scene. Okay, so this is another thing he does that is, I think, just a real subtle fuck you. He picks up a street walking sex worker and then calls a high-end sex worker.
Right, yeah.
Just as a way to show them, like, what's the difference? To me,
it's all interchangeable to me. Who cares?
Yeah, you're the same to me. And that's why he makes the high-end call girl lick the other girl's ass.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is all just power play kind of stuff.
Yep, it's power play stuff. And speaking of power play stuff, let's talk about the P-tape.
Smooth transition.
Yeah, so do you think Donald Trump, while he was directing those two sex workers in Moscow at the Ritz-Carlton in the room where the Obamas stayed to pee on each other in the bed the Obamas slept in, do you think he was also talking about his favorite Fox News correspondents and like just really getting passionate about Brett Hume or whatever? Like,
I mean, it doesn't sound outlandish when you put it that way.
Yeah. Now you pee on her face. Anyway, so I really love that Tommy Lauren. She's so pretty.
It does seem like those two scenes are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
You put it that way.
Yeah, I honestly, that's the first thing I thought about after, seeing it now in that context. I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, I mean, we know. Gosh. Fucking Trump is disgusting.
Side note.
Y'all are fucked if you vote for him. Jesus.
That's the thing, too, about this movie, though, is especially in terms of the humor and stuff. Like, it had been so long since I watched this movie that I forgot how many of my everyday quotes and phrases that I use came from here. I mean, the part you just talked about a second ago where he's like, don't just look at it, eat it.
Eat it, yeah.
Like, that's something that Kate and I say to each other all the time when, like, we're feeding the dog or, like, making food for each other. Like, that comes up
in bed. Don't just look
it's
at
just
it.
like,
Eat
I
it.
say that line all the time, and I forget that that's where it came from. Same with, like, I've got to return some videotapes.
I got to return
You're
some
like Huey
videotapes.
Lewis in the news?
Yeah.
If you hear the song Susudio, you're obligated to go, this is Susudio.
This is
And
Susudio.
I just forget how many of my favorite quotes come from this flick. It is so quotable.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and it's just so perfect for now. It needs to be watched. This again, random drawing. This keeps happening. We keep picking movies like thinking that'll be a fun one to talk about, and then it ends up being entirely political.
A little too relevant. Yeah.
But that's crazy that so many horror movies are relevant right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Because we're living through one.
Yeah.
The thing with this movie, too, that I caught this time that I hadn't really noticed before, a couple months ago, whenever we did our Poltergeist episode, we'd spent a lot of time in that talking about how that family very much embodied 80s culture.
Like the suburban family, yeah.
Yeah, and everything's uniform. All those houses are the same, and they have name brand everything. And they don't have pizza, they have Pizza Hut. Like, everything is this consumerist name brand kind of thing. Actually really felt a lot of connections between Poltergeist and this movie in that regard, where everything is branded. You know, everything has a label attached to it. It just kind of reminded me of Poltergeist, since we talked about that not too long ago.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, there's a big connection between the sort of messages of the two about consumerism. I mean, the way this movie starts with like the, I guess it's probably like a raspberry puree or something, but it looks like blood. And those just like really elaborate plates. It just starts out with consumption, like immediately, like these are these like elaborate things for you to consume, these very elaborate plates. And then of course we're going to be introduced to a guy who's sleeping on the street. Like it's just immediately we get the consumer, like wealth inequality message, and so much about every product he uses and stuff he wears and all that stuff. Like he's just constantly talking about products. Yeah, they're definitely connected in their message at the very least.
Yeah, definitely, man. And of course, you know, this is a noteworthy movie in that it has a scene with Batman and the Joker in it. Batman kills the Joker. Batman doesn't kill.
It does have a scene. Batman kills the Joker. That's pretty crazy. I have a theory about this.
Okay.
Batman connection I came up with, and it actually made me change my thoughts on Batman as a character.
Okay. All right.
Patrick Bateman is Bruce Wayne. And
okay. All right. Psychotic billionaire wealthy guy. Okay.
Yeah. And Patrick Bateman's insistence that he's always wearing a mask means that when he goes out at night to kill, he's Batman. And this is a riff on what Batman actually is. And I never thought about it like this, and now I hate the character Batman. But Batman is a rich man who controls the wealth of the entire city. And yet, he has allowed the city to become rampant with crime because of extreme wealth inequality. And he goes out at night to beat up the people who are suffering because he refuses to help the city with his money. He spends money on tech to go beat up poor people. He is I'm just
going to go ahead and just wait for when Kate gets to this part of the podcast and probably just like calls you and puts you on blast. But okay.
That's what he does. It is what he does. He beats up poor people by night, and he justifies it by creating the wealth inequality that keeps the crime high.
So do you think there's ever conversations late at night when Alfred is like, "Sir, perhaps we could improve this sector of the city by donating maybe $1 billion?" And Bruce is like, no, I'm just going to go beat the shit out of him.
You know what I need? A batarang that explodes with nerve gas.
And a tank.
I mean, Batman is the ultimate militarized police with no actual like answering to the law at any point, which is what our police force is. I'm just saying, I think Batman is tone deaf now and needs to probably go away. I'm just saying it, man.
Hot take, man.
I think Batman and the Punisher just need to go away for a while because you are representations of actually everything that's wrong. Unfortunately. Right. Unfortunately.
You know, I'll tell you another thing that I caught this time around. Like, whenever I watch this movie the first couple of times, and it gets to that part towards the end where you know things are kind of spiraling out of control and you're questioning his reality and questioning his sanity. For me, the real big moment there was when he goes to the ATM and it says, "Feed me a stray cat."
Yeah,
like at that point is when I was like,
he's probably crazy.
Yeah, like he's out of his mind. But the thing that really stuck with me this time about it is how it didn't faze him whatsoever.
No, yeah, he was just like, "Oh, okay."
And also, too, if you get down to it, he just did anything that the money-making machine told him to do. I mean,
That's
as irrational or as cruel or as psychotic as it would be to just grab a stray cat and stuff it inside of an ATM, the thing is he will do it for money without even
money tells
flinching.
him what to do.
Yeah, or questioning the morality, questioning the reality of it or the consequences.
Doesn't
he
matter.
just sees, this is what the ATM wants me to do. Okay, I'll do it.
Yep. 100%. That's definitely what they're getting at with that, is just the idea that no matter what, he will follow, like, no matter what, these investment guys are going to follow the market, meaning they're going to create problems and they're going to make things fail and they're going to prop things up with false appearances of success, and they're going to do all they can constantly to make money for themselves. It does not matter what they have to do. They don't feel bad about it. They're going to do it no matter what.
And afterwards, there will be no consequences.
None whatsoever. Yep.
What do you think about the soundtrack in this, other than the pop soundtrack? What do you think about the original score?
It's good.
I think it's fucking great, man.
Really good. Yeah,
There's really subtle things going on with it, too, that I noticed this time. Like, early in the movie, whenever he's like talking about his skincare routine, and then that transitions into him just being like, but underneath it, I'm fucking nothing. Like, it gets real nihilistic and dark out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Whoever put the score together behind that made it start getting subtly more dissonant behind it right at the exact moment that he says that line. Like, it's like the music sort of turns on a dime really subtly, to where if you're not really paying attention, you won't really notice it. You'll be like, oh, it's ominous now. But it's gone from being this very tonal, pleasant music as he's talking about his skincare routine, and then just subtly gets fucked up harmonically right when he says it. It's one of those like really subtle but very well done things that I really appreciate in the original soundtrack.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't even notice that.
Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, small stuff like that, man. You know, one thing I learned too about this, the character of Willem Dafoe and his detective role.
Oh, right.
It seems so significant, but then at the end of the day, there are no consequences, so it's not really all that significant. And also, too, it's so hard to pin down what is going through his head. If he thinks that Patrick did it, if he thinks he's innocent. And I found out that part of that is because they apparently had Willem Dafoe do 3 takes of everything.
Yeah, they had him do a take where he knows that Patrick is the killer. They had him do a take where he has no idea, and then they had him do a take where he was suspicious.
And then they apparently just
used them interchangeably. Yeah.
Just to like make it confusing, where you're like, I don't know what fucking page he's on.
Yeah. I like that because, you know, it really does feel from the beginning like, oh, maybe he does know. And then like suddenly he'll turn on a dime and it's like, oh, he doesn't know. And it's like, wait, maybe he's playing him. But then by the end, it's just like, oh no, he just doesn't know.
Yeah. Or maybe he did. Like I have
or maybe
no
he did and doesn't
clue.
care. Yeah.
I love his acting in this. I mean, obviously he's always awesome.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe's amazing.
And it's so cool when you watch this flick because like when you think about the acting overall, you're thinking about Patrick Bateman, you're thinking about Christian Bale and this weird, soulless, plastic character that he plays that sounds like an actor. I mean, he doesn't sound like a human being. He sounds like a pre-recorded role of some guy reading cue cards or something. Like he sounds very, very fake. But then he's surrounded by all these characters that are very human and are giving, performances and stuff that are very relatable and normal and just makes him seem that much more alien and non-human because of it, man. It's really risky the way that he played the role of Patrick Bateman because the whole movie is with him constantly. I mean, there's like one scene, I think, the scene with Chloe Sevigny where she's looking through his diaries there.
Yeah, that's the only one that he's not in,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it would have been very easy for that to turn into a really stupid portrayal or that to be a very distracting, annoying character. But God, man, I love the risk that they took.
He took inspiration from 2 things, and let me tell you, Ben, they're wild. Number 1 was he saw an interview on David Letterman with Tom Cruise.
Oh, no.
And he wanted to imitate that outward charm, but inwardly dead behind the eyes.
Oh my God.
And then the other was Nick Cage's performance in Vampire's Kiss, which is one of his most insane performances ever.
So I haven't seen that movie, but actually the way that his character is so over the top and ridiculous screams Nicolas Cage.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dancing stuff, all that is definitely him pulling some Nick Cage in, for sure.
Dude, especially I'm thinking of the whole like Paul Allen murder scene, only Nick Cage is in it instead.
Yeah,
even him being like, "Hey, Paul," and then screaming and throwing the axe at him. It's like, Nick Cage could totally do that.
Yep. Yeah, so you can see it, and like you really can if you look at some interviews with Tom Cruise, you can really see what he was going for. That just like, there's nothing going on back there, nothing going on, just blank. And nice to meet you, but blank.
Yeah, nothing behind the eyes.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. It's a really fucking awesome movie.
It is. It's great.
I'm so glad that it stood the test of time and that it wasn't one of those ones where I watched it and I was like, I get why I liked it back then, but now it's kind of shot. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I hate that this movie is relevant again. Like, I really hate that this is so on the nose as far as it, like right now we're just living through the second wave of Reaganomics. Like, this is Reagan the Resurrection right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is suddenly all the more real and applicable. And especially, too, it's like even worse now that everybody knows how bought and sold everybody that runs the world is. Everybody knows how greedy and heartless all these captains of industry and politicians and people making the decisions that, again, affect the lives of actual people, life and death. Everybody knows it now. So this movie is like probably actually scarier.
Yeah. The most disappointing part is that everybody knows it and people still jump to defend a politician ever.
Yeah,
like, why?
Right?
Why do we ever jump to defend a politician?
I
can defend an issue. I'm not defending a politician.
No. And we're not just fucking picking on the red team. We hate them all.
No, I fucking hate the blue team as well. God damn, they've been sucking shit.
Oh, God, so bad. Because they're all like the scum that we see in this movie.
Yep.
All interchangeable. Like, you put
all
a different colored tie on one, and suddenly he's the other guy.
Yep. Yeah, so, man, this really hits home. I'm glad that we got to this now, like, and it's not in a time where this would just seem like an over-the-top ridiculous thing. Like, we can say for sure, like, no. We've lived through this. It's real. I do like that the movie basically ends with a conversation about whether or not Ronald Reagan has dementia or is a secret genius. Because that is the same conversation being had about Trump among the GOP.
And Joe Biden.
Well, yeah. And he's not a secret genius, but...
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever accused Biden of being a genius.
No, I don't think so.
Whatever answer they would give to that question doesn't even matter anyway, because they're just benefiting from it. So who gives a fuck? I mean, the Reaganomics stuff only benefited those pieces of shit you're watching at the end of the movie. Just like all the tax cuts now only benefit really fucking rich people.
They will never care about you. Just stop pretending they will, guys.
Yeah, so to them, it doesn't matter if he is a genius or in the in the throes of dementia. As long as it benefits them, it doesn't matter. So who cares?
Yeah, they don't care. Yeah, it does matter, not one bit, which is very sad and unfortunately still relevant. Might need to set a maximum age for president.
I think that's a fucking beautiful idea, because I don't know a single person whose brain started working better after the age of 70. No. It doesn't work that way. Parts are wearing out by that point, y'all.
Yeah. I think, honestly, there are a million other things I would say about this movie, but I think we've hit the most important elements, that this is extremely relevant today. we're not really even reaching for anything here. Bret Easton Ellis was definitely writing about Trump and his kind. This movie, unfortunately, is extremely relevant 20 years later.
Yeah.
And it was about a period 13 years before that, and it was still going on before that, and before that, and before that. We just keep repeating the same goddamn mistake. I like that the movie points that out and does it in a really like a really effective way, but also really well thought out way. Nothing in this movie seems to be flippant. Everything seems to be a choice. Like the way everything looks, what everyone's wearing, everything seems to be a strong choice.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I don't feel like there's any coincidences for really anything. Like here's another example of that. Now that you pointed that out, okay, I meant to mention this earlier when they're talking about the business cards and stuff, right?
Yeah,
they're all obsessing over the tiniest details about what material and what color. It's like it's bone versus Nimbus or what the fuck ever. Yeah. Do you notice how there's a fucking typo on all of them?
No.
The word acquisitions is misspelled. But they don't notice that. That's the thing, is like they don't notice that. Yeah, they're just obsessed with all the minutia of what it's made of, not what it actually says. Wow. And also, too, like he also gets a few dates of albums and stuff wrong as well.
Huh.
Yeah. So there's little stuff like that, too. So, sorry, I meant to point that out earlier.
Wow, that's interesting. I like that. I like that.
I don't think that's a coincidence either. Like I think that's deliberate.
It's deliberate. Yeah, I would say it's about creating reality. It's about just like whatever he says is truth. Like it doesn't have to be verifiable truth. He said it, and therefore it is true. Like yeah. It's interesting. I did not think about that. But yeah, this is extremely well acted. Christian Bale's amazing. Everybody's awesome in this. Well directed. The writing is impeccable. It moves at a great pace.
Totally passes the phone test, man. No phone touching in this movie at all, even though I've seen it multiple times.
It's interesting how that pace works, where the first 40 minutes do feel like 40 minutes. The last hour feels like it flies by.
Right.
So,
totally agree.
Yeah. So it's just a joy to watch, but then every single time he is killing someone, it is very hard to watch. All of these things are just, you're watching a sadist in action, and it's hard. It's like watching Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, almost. But it's great. It's amazing. For me, this is like a 9.5, probably 9.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have very little to complain about. Like, do you have any complaints about the movie?
They didn't introduce Mila Kunis's character for the sequel.
From American Psycho 2. You're right.
Right. So that's definitely a complaint.
Well, continuity
Never watch
error.
that sequel unless you want to see a terrible fucking movie.
It sounds really bad. I don't know anything about it, but I watched a trailer for it last night, and I was like, holy shit. It looks like somebody completely missed the point of this movie.
Yep, absolutely. They were just trying to make money off the name because this was a surprise success. I mean, $7 million budget, almost $35 million at the box office. So.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't have any real complaints, honestly. I think it's rare that a movie really does just nail every single aspect so perfectly, but it's great. I love it. I wish maybe they could have gotten a Trump like cameo, like just not told him what the movie was and gotten like a Home Alone style cameo. yeah, that would have really been funny if they got that. But yeah, no complaints for me.
Right on. Yeah, I'm with you. There's very little to complain about here. There's like one little loose thread in the movie that kind of dangled that they never really went back to. There's that scene where he's with, I can't remember what her name is, but it's one of the, I think it might be Lewis's chick that he's like fooling around with and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She has these lines that are like seemingly significant and poignant where she's like, if I don't see you before Easter.
She's suicidal. Yeah.
I didn't get that.
That doesn't get resolved. You're right.
And I asked Kate about it. I was like, that was kind of a weird beat. And Kate's like, oh, it's because she kills herself. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she remembered that happening in the movie, but of course it doesn't. I guess it happens in the book. So that's like kind of a little dangle that didn't necessarily need to be there. I mean, that scene needed to be there to show that like they're all just fucking each other's ladies and stuff the entire time.
Well, and also I think it shows how incapable he is of reading people.
Yeah,
she's very clearly asking for help. And he's got nothing. Nothing, yeah.
Totally, man. So like that's about the only complaint that I have, honestly.
That's a very valid complaint.
It's the rare movie that is kind of hinged on a twist that also isn't hinged on a twist, because you can rewatch the fuck out of this movie and read it so many different ways.
Yeah. I like that. I like that it just has that ambiguity to it that you can get so much out of it watching it different ways. You can just say like, oh, he doesn't even exist or whatever, or he didn't do the killings, or he did do the killings, or he only did some of the killings. Yeah, there's just so many ways to see it. You're right.
Oh, yeah. And especially, too, just when you watch it thinking maybe the character of Patrick Bateman, we're watching a different one of these guys every time, killing a prostitute, killing a bum. Like, maybe it's just all of them the entire movie. You can watch it with that mindset, and it makes sense.
Yeah, because he doesn't seem to have any sort of pattern at all in who he kills. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can watch this whole movie and be like, it's not really about Christian Bale. It's about the entire gang, and they all assume this Patrick Bateman role because they're all so interchangeable and characterless. It's like they have sold any hint of individuality that they have for this dream of greed and wealth and being of that upper crust and fitting in with that scene, that they have become completely characterless and interchangeable. So it might as well be any of them the whole time. Who killed Paul Allen?
Yeah.
Who's Paul Allen? Was Paul Allen even really Paul Allen? Or was he just somebody that one of these shitheads called Paul Allen? He's like, yeah, I'm that guy today. Sure.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's possible. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's a fucking awesome movie. And like you said, all the very deliberate choices make me appreciate it every time that I see this flick. And I will continue to watch this over and over and again in the future as well. I think I'm gonna say a solid 9. I think I'm gonna toss it a 9er.
I thought you were gonna say 6, and I was like, wait, what? I'm gonna toss it a 6. What?
It's a 6.
All the nice things I said about it, it's all right.
Yeah. That being said, Deece. All right, man. Super, super cool flick. I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. I would like to know the opinions of people that hate the movie. So if you hate this movie,
please
let us know why over on the Facebook group or something like that. If you like this episode, be sure to rate and review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. I'm 80 years old. iTunes. Apple Podcasts is where you can rate and review the show. Helps us show up in those search engines and stuff a whole bunch. So please go on there and do that. If you like the show, support us on Patreon.
Yeah, patreon.com/Dead and Lovely. Head over there. Yeah. Go follow us on those social medias, the Instagram and Twitter @DeadLovelyPod. We're also on Discord. We've posted that link a million times. If you need it, let me know. I'll send it to you.
We're easy to get a hold of. And if you want to be a cool person, be like Uncle Ben and go support your local Black Lives Matter chapter. There's a protest happening a couple days from now in town. By the time this comes out, it will have already happened. But if you are able to participate and let your voice be heard in your area to help this cause along, please do so. And
and wear a mask. Be careful.
Wear a mask. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. That's for fucking sure. So next week on the show, Steve, we're going to be talking about one that people have asked us to do many times on the show. It apparently is a love it or leave it movie. I honestly can't remember if I've watched it or not. I want to say it's one of those movies that I had on Netflix one night and was doing something else and didn't really pay attention to it. So it might as well be the first time. What are we watching?
Feels like the first time. Yeah. Watching the Invitation.
That's right. That Invitation.
Yeah. Karen Kusama.
I hope it's good. You like it, don't you?
I do. I like it. I thought it was great. But yeah, I've seen some polarized opinions, but a lot of people love it, and we had I think like at least 4 or 5 people had entered it for the Patreon drawing. So
Wow.
we're getting to it.
Awesome, man. Well, I look forward to covering that one on the show next week. Well, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. We've been Uncle Ben,
Hollywood Steve,
we're Dead and Lovely, and you guys are the best. Be sure to wash your hands
and your ass.
and tune in for the show next week.
Bye.
If you're one of those motherfuckers that's going around with your all lives matter horseshit all over the place, whenever it gets around to the end of the year, if you're not saying motherfucking happy holidays, you are a piece of shit.
Yeah, because
all holidays matter, motherfucker.
Duh. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Because you know that's going to be a thing.
I mean, I am excited for July 4th for all countries matter to trend. I am excited for that.